Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mirrorball movie Cowboys. Not the Midnight Movie Cowboys, part of, but the other sub series that I'm doing with Mr. I can get it right, Stuart, some way. Eric Mulder over there from Watch This Movie.
I've been enjoying that on your recent videos that you pointed to the wrong direction.
I feel like the scarecrow in the Wizard of Oz. I'm like, that way, is it that way? I can't get it right. I think it's the opposites. You're there. I don't know. I'll work it out one day. I cannot be asked at the moment.
I think Zoom just mirrors your own image. So when you're looking at yourself, it's reverse. I think that's what throws it off.
I don't know. Anyway, that's besides the point. So this is episode 2 of our 3-part series, or the first part of our 3-part series that we're doing. We will do a later one once you're back in the podcasting fold, I guess, after the birth of your son next month. So later in the year, we'll have more lined up. But the first 3-part series, this is episode 2. Episode 1 was Boogie Nights that we did a few weeks back. Episode 2 is Last Days of Disco, 1998, isn't it? This one?
It is.
Mm-hmm. All right. And okay, as we did with the first one, we're going to talk about where we were exactly at that time. And I remember hearing about this one on the grapevine. Sort of just voices were talking about this film called Last Days of Disco. I thought, oh, another disco movie. We had Boogie Nights not long before that.
Mm-hmm.
And now we got another one. Okay, cool. But unlike Boogie Nights, which I saw, I think I said I saw as a rental from memory, and Studio 54, which I did see at the drive-in, I didn't see this one for some reason. I don't know why. I think, you know what it was? I think that the poster image of Chloe Sevigny and Kate Beckinsale on the poster just put me off. It shouldn't do, because, it shouldn't do, but I thought, it just seems a bit pretentious for my liking. It just doesn't seem like the whole Mirrorball, like Studio 54 did, where it was all about Studio 54. Because I knew this was set about a club, but they don't mention it as Studio 54. Obviously, I knew there was another film about that coming down the line.
54 got the rights to the studio name, so
yep.
The Castle Rock, I think, is who Castle Rock and Miramax. Or was it? Okay, Miramax did 54, right?
Yes.
So yeah, Castle Rock had Last Days of Disco. So they lost out on the rights to 54, but they ramped up production so they could beat 54 to the theaters, which they did by about 3 months. So this was another, Deep Impact, Armageddon, Volcano, Dante's Peak, except nobody remembers this one because both movies bombed, basically.
Yeah, they did. And so I just never saw it until you sent me the Blu-ray, which I was meant to pull off the shelf to show, but you will do that for me. There it is. You're very kind. Yes, you were very kind to send me a copy of that, because you knew I am a big fan of disco and had never seen it. So I'm very thankful for that. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, I'm very thankful. And gotta say, before we get into the movie, that Criterion transfer is outstanding. Damn, it looks good.
It's worth that $40 retail MSRP.
Ooh, is that what it goes for?
If it's not on sale. I rarely buy Criterions that aren't on sale or used. I bought this one at a Barnes and Noble 50% off, so I got this for 20. But yeah, anytime there's not a sale, it's always 40. Sometimes like in my Jackie Chan collection, Police Story 1 and 2, so it's 2 movies and it's $50. Blows the special features, transfer looks great, so that you get a little deal with the box sets. My Cassavetes 5-film box set got on sale, but that probably goes for around 100, I'm guessing. MSRP.
It got
$20 a movie, you're thinking,
Yeah, it got Killing of a Chinese Bookie on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
was
Both versions as well.
one of the slowest movies I've ever seen. I said, man,
You
that was.
watched the wrong version.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think the one I
Yeah.
watched was 130 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, that's the one you should not watch.
Okay. Well, what's the other one?
It's over 20 minutes shorter.
Yeah, because
It's something like
that needed a trim.
probably like 108 minutes or something.
Right.
I
I
forget
know.
what it is, but it's something like that. 112.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's where I was in 1998. 26 years old when this came out. A complete freaking mess. Just yeah, as I mentioned before, I think in the other episode, just work through the day and just boozing up and skirt chasing on Friday through to Sunday. So yeah, good times.
Yeah, I was not at that point in my life yet. I was 12 at the time, middle school, sixth grade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I saw this for the first time about 4 years ago.
Okay.
Like I said, I bought it at Barnes and Noble. It was a blind buy. I hadn't even really heard of it. I was looking through the titles, saw Last Days of Disco, and I had just really started getting into disco. I'd been into 80s stuff for a very long time, but I started getting into more specifically just disco about 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm thinking, well, this is okay. It's 80s disco. It's Criterion. I'll give it a try. And I absolutely loved it from start to finish.
Yep.
Watched it several times over that summer when I first got it. I've seen the first half hour of this movie, I'd say at least 20 times. It's the first
That
30
much?
minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the first 30 minutes, I would say. Probably watched it 20
The
times.
first 30 minutes inside the club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That scene. But yeah, I'd never heard of Whit Stillman, the director, writer, before this.
Right.
I guess I had heard of him because we had a film of his, I think it was called Love and Friendship, with 78 and Beckinsale teamed up again
Right.
for a Whit Stillman film for 2016 that we showed her at a theater, but I hadn't heard of him at the time. I hadn't seen Last Days of Disco at the time. So it's just kind of in one ear, out the other. So since I've seen this, I did go back and watch Metropolitan, which that's kind of how he broke out into the scene. He was nominated for an Oscar for original screenplay. Not bad for your first time out.
I'd never heard of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Neither would I. And I'm, a lot of people give the Oscar shit, and rightfully so, especially nowadays. But I've always kind of been like paid attention to its history and who won what year. I can't memorize every nominee or anything like that, but I had not heard a whiff of anything about Metropolitan or his follow-up Barcelona. But I watched it. It's pretty good. It is pretty slow. It's a similar storyline, and I mean they're all loosely connected. His first three films.
Yeah.
It's called like his doomed bourgeois love series, and it's always a bunch of yuppies falling in and out of love and whatnot. But yeah, it's a bit slow. I could see where the dialogue, he has a real knack for dialogue, kind of very Mamet-esque or Tarantino-esque, very snappy.
That's what I noticed. Very quick fire dialogue. It doesn't seem to be any sort of pauses in between their conversation.
Yeah, I guess I would describe his characters as, at least in this film, as delightfully verbose, I guess. It's not always a good thing, but I think in this one it is.
Yeah. It reminded me a little bit of like a Kevin Smith sort of Talking Heads as well. Or always, and in particular when they get to that whole Lady in the Tramp thing, which I thought, this ain't funny, it ain't working. Like I would have cut that. If you're gonna do something like that, make it funny, because this is billed as a comedy, which I did not know. I really didn't know.
I mean,
there are some funny bits. There are some genuinely funny bits in this film. I thought that's very cool. But yeah, you were saying.
I don't know what is there left to say. So I still haven't seen Barcelona or his any of his subsequent two films. I believe it's only two after Last Days of Disco. He
Yeah, he's
did
not
some
very prolific. He's very sort of
no,
low down.
he's kind of talked about how he had a lot of projects he was working on but never finished. He did do a pilot for Amazon called Cosmopolitans. I haven't seen or heard much about that. I think that was probably 5-6 years ago. What else? He was he writes about what he knows. Everything's kind of loosely based off of himself and his own life experiences. He grew up I guess I could say a blue blood, born in DC. His forget what his mother did, but his father was a Democrat politician, assistant secretary of commerce for JFK, and went to school with him as well. His dad went to school at JFK, was in his class. Stillman went to Harvard, wrote for the paper Harvard Crimson. He actually worked for a conservative news outlet in the 70s. He's kind of put some distance between him and that. In 2012, he was quoted as saying he's apolitical, which especially in 2012, that was just code for I'm conservative, but I can't say that. But judging by his Twitter, if he's conservative, he's a neocon or an ever-Trumper. Because he despises Trump and very much up to date on the comings and goings of what's going on in Ukraine. So he's probably a liberal or a never Trumper conservative that just doesn't speak out as much in Hollywood. But I guess that's something about these films. They are kind of apolitical, these films. Like they might mention, I mean, you get shades of maybe what their political leanings are, but Reagan's never mentioned by name.
No.
Jimmy Carter, Bush, anything like, I mean, Bush was a little, ahead of this time, but
yeah,
they don't really get specific to the time.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the film. And it starts in the start of the 80s. What do you
very early 80s with the strobe opening credits?
Yeah,
it's like strobing at you. I like those.
Yeah. What do you think about the start, it being the very early 80s? Good move?
I think it's fitting. I guess it depends on where you feel like the disco died.
I think 1980. I would have really preferred this to set the very end of the 70s. Would have made a lot more sense.
Yeah, it does say the very early 80s. So you could say it's 1980, 1981. We'll probably get into Disco Demolition Night later, but that was in 79.
79. That's the thing that bugged me because I thought when they showed that later in the film, I said, well, that was 79. I knew that very well. That's 79. That Chicago baseball field, was it?
Yeah, I believe Comiskey, not Wrigley. This is a White Sox game.
Okay.
So there's Comiskey Park, I think, at the time. Or Comerica. It might be Comerica Park now. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah.
So that was odd choice at the start, the very early. They could have finished at the end with the title card saying the very early 80s, which leads us into a new era of the yuppie era.
But I at least like to think that the disco era lasts until about 83.
No.
But
no way.
I know that's a little wishful thinking, but I like to think of it that it lasted longer than 79, 1980.
It was a blink and a miss it sort of thing. It really started around 75, didn't really kick on to about 76. 77 to 79 was its peak years. By the time 1980 came around, which was the Can't Stop the Music film, The Village People, it was dead. It was absolutely dead.
Possibly a Stay Tuned. Can't Stop the Music.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll see.
Never say never. If I haven't given up just yet after all these years, I ain't giving up now for that one. But that bothered me a little, not a great deal, but it was a thing that made me stop and think, should have just pegged it back to the end of the had it said, sometime 1979, it would have changed the context of the film. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's,
But yeah, like I said, I like to think of the disco era as extending into about 82, 83, but it just makes the film fit a little better for me. I think that it's kind of a general time frame or era. It's the last days of disco, early 80s. I think maybe they threw in the Disco Demolition from 79 as sort of I guess to kind of give some context, because before that is shown, I forget his name, the douche that works with them at the publishing house, disco sucks, yells at him walking down the hallway.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the mantra from that shock jock that organized the Disco Demolition and all of his followers. Disco sucks.
Yeah.
Disco die.
They also had in 1984 they had a metal concert which was on VHS tape. It's never gotten a subsequent other media home format release after that, called the Combat Tour, The Ultimate Revenge, which was filmed at the old Studio 54, but it was Exodus, Slayer, and Venom played there on the one night. And you see at the start of the video, they're burning a poster of Saturday Night Fever. So that was, sort of their way of saying it was the end of disco. And that was 84. So 84 or 85, I think it was. So it might have been, I think it was 85, actually, from memory. Which disco was dead by 85, long gone. And if you look at bands like the Village People, they're probably the most famous, but they're by no means the best representation of disco. There's much better bands out there, like Chic. I think are much better.
They're probably my favorite disco group. Chic,
yeah. Nile Rodgers is a freaking genius. I think he's so good. And his other, but they were more, excuse me, sort of. It was more solo artists of the time that were big. It was a genre where more the solo artists. You had your Alicia Bridges, and it was more the one genre that had one hit wonders more than anything, I reckon. Because basically,
Dickie Sue Robinson,
and one of my favorites, the Andrea True connection, Andrea True herself, which I'm glad to say that song "More," which I absolutely freaking love, is in this film a few times over. So I was happy to hear that.
Yeah. Did you watch this movie loud? Did you put the speakers on high?
It got a crank. It got some cranking. So yeah, not played low, that's for sure. I will say, we're jumping about a bit here, but we'll get back to it. The soundtrack in this film is absolutely stellar. It was fantastic. The choices were partially pedestrian, that it's a given, you're going to play that, and some were a little out of the way. I don't know who that is, so they look it up and go, I like that.
I thought it was a really nice mix.
Yeah,
like even especially someone with me coming into this 4 years ago, it's kind of I wouldn't say disco novice, but definitely kind of a little bit of a beginner. Like there's plenty of songs I knew, but there was others that I didn't. And also the non-disco songs, some of the songs that are played at Rex's, like Opportunity and Queen Majesty.
Yeah.
I really like those songs. Ugum Bugum. Really love those songs.
Yeah. But as I was saying with the Village People, by the time 1980 rolled around, especially 81, they, along with a lot of other bands with the disco era, which there was not many, had moved from disco into new wave. If you listen to those last few Village People album, and it's a struggle getting through them, they're new wave. They're more like pop new wave. So the disco with that particular 128 beats per minute, thumping pulse to it is gone. So Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'd be interested to see Barcelona because Stillman got kind of the idea for this film while they were filming some disco scenes in Barcelona. And I wonder if there's some new wave disco there.
yeah,
Um, but
possibly,
yeah,
possibly.
sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to see his other films and see what the intertwining thread between this one and his first two.
Mhm. It's just kind of like a couple of characters make cameos that are in kind of each film.
Mm,
And I believe there's two in this film that have speaking roles, and there's maybe a couple other characters that are just kind of club goers dancing in the background.
mm, yeah, but the thing is, those films are obscure. They're not like Kevin Smith Clerks and Mallrats, where those films are quite popular. Mallrats was a bomb, but
Mhm.
it gains a big following on home video.
Yeah.
So when people would watch his other films, they go, "Oh shit, there's you know Ben Affleck's character, and there's Jason Lee's one, and there's uh, Joey Lauren Adams' character." So people knew it, whereas this one, those first two films, I had never heard of them. So to me, they were obscure. So to see those characters come into this one, I wouldn't be able to say, "Oh wow, there's such and such from Metropolitan." I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So when I was reading the actual essay included in the Blu-ray notes, I thought, oh, okay, didn't even know there was
Yeah.
recurring characters
I was
cropping.
the same way since I saw this one first. So
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
not really missing anything. It's just, I guess if you're a, Whit Stillman diehard, then you'll be, oh, isn't that cool?
if you're in these
The
universe,
characters from Metropolitan.
yeah, yeah. If you're in the, it's his way of saying if you followed his other two films, you're going to be rewarded by having these characters roll up for a little bit.
Mhm.
And those who are in the in the know would go, oh, there's such and such, and no one
Yeah.
else will have a clue what you're talking about. So anyway, let's get into this film. This first 30 minutes you were telling me you've seen many, many times. So let's
Mhm.
talk about that. I was surprised to see a scene go that long for
Mhm.
25, 30 minutes where it's just in the clock.
Yeah. When she leaves Tom's apartment in the morning, it's like 27 and a half minutes, something like that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
So
that's a good damn quarter chunk of this film, maybe 1/5.
mhm.
So
And it's almost all at the club. There's the cutaway scene at the diner between Tom and sorry, what forget some of the character names here.
we can bring this up on
Guy
the.
who ends up with Alice at the end, the good guy, the crazy one.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't bring up screen sharing because you've disabled it, boss. So I'll do it for us.
Disabled it. Oops.
Never mind. Uh, but we've got Tom, which is Robert Sean Leonard. Who else we got? Chloe 70, Alice, Kate Beckinsale, Charlotte. A lot of these people I didn't know. Chris Eigerman is Des. I had no idea who he was. Mackenzie
Mhm.
Aston I knew from his older brother Sean Aston, obviously.
Yeah. Matt Kiesler is who I'm thinking of, who played Josh.
Yeah, the
Josh is the
DA or the assistant or whatever he is, attorney,
assistant DA. Yeah.
assistant DA. Yeah,
I'm sure you
Jennifer,
were delighted to see Jennifer Beals.
I was. Boy, I didn't pick her though for the start. I thought, boy, I know that face. Who is it? But when I saw the credits in, I said, oh shit, that was Jennifer Beals. Damn, nice
Mhm.
move. I'll tell you what I actually liked the most in this film was a woman called Tara Subkoff who played their other roommate Holly. I went, ooh, man, that made me sit up and go,
A bit dim, isn't she?
oh yeah, but holy shit, she was a good-looking woman. I tell you.
Yeah, she was a fox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah. After that, basically a lot of unknowns. Um, which is good. I preferred it that way because I'm not distracted by going, oh, like we did with Boogie Nights. We had, oh, it's Marky Mark as the
Mhm.
big one, and as we will with 54 when we get into that, we've got, oh, it's Nev Campbell, and oh, it's Summer Hike. So it was good to have those unknown faces. And in '98, Chloe 70 I'd never heard of. Kate Beckinsale I'd never heard of. Obviously know who they are now, but not back then. So
Yeah,
I
before
wish
this,
I had.
I'd only seen Chloe in a couple of things before this,
Okay.
and I've always, thought she was fine. Good actress. But watching this, I really kind of fall in love with her and her character. I could see what Prince Vince was after in the late 90s after seeing this,
Yeah.
especially that tube top she wears in that one scene. I
Yeah.
like that tube top.
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, very well. Yeah. But yeah, I'm the same. I thought her character of Alice was the one I felt connected with the most, or not connected with because I'm a male, but that was the one I was interested in the most.
Just getting in touch with your feminine side.
Don't say that. Yeah. don't rob me my masculinity. They're doing enough of that as it is at the moment. But I liked her. I was sort of cold towards Kate Beckinsale, Charlotte. I thought, no, you're just like you're
Such
a
a
bit of a
bitch.
female player. Well, a bit of a player as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that kindergarten teacher style that they say about. Yeah. I like that.
Girl next door. Yeah.
That's
Perfect girl next door.
definitely more my type of woman, more than
Yeah.
the club, well, BITH or BITCHs that they call them. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about that opening 25 minutes or so inside the club. You basically got the two female leads. Good to see two female leads as well. It draws away from the complete testosterone of Boogie Nights. There's a polar opposite of that.
Yeah.
And that's where all three films have a mix. You've got Boogie Nights, which is very male driven, even though there are female leads. This is very female driven, the leads, and you got 54, which is a mixture of both, which we'll get into next time. Let's go to let's see the two female leads. I think they work well together.
Yeah.
They come across well. The thing that I found really sort of confusing was the whole ad agency. Why are they having a problem having the ad guys in the club?
Well, at the end, you find out, that that's how the DA and, the cops were they're basically sending in undercovers as guests of these ad agency people. And that's, the Hap was the undercover officer, DA, DA attorney or something like that. He was an undercover. That's why he was with Jimmy in the beginning. That's why he went with him in the club when the bosses or the clients, left.
Right.
But I seem to remember reading somewhere or hearing about there being even like another deleted scene, because from the very beginning, Bernie, the boss, doesn't not want ad agency people in there. And his reasons for not wanting them in there seemed kind of ridiculous. It didn't really make any sense. I thought there was something in the script or something filmed that was like he had heard that there was going to be undercover sent in as ad agency clients, but I don't know. I've watched the deleted scenes on the Criterion Blu-ray. You can skip it; they're all pretty pointless. It was good that they were cut. They provide a little bit of context, but nothing important in there.
I saw it. They were cut for a reason. I watched it as well and said, "There's nothing here I'm missing."
But there was nothing in there that kind of explained why Bernie had this irrational hatred of ad men. But that's what it was. Because at the end, towards the end, Bernie confronts Dez about there being undercover cops in there disguised as ad clients. So his, I guess his reluctance was justified at the end, but it didn't really give you a good reason at the beginning, I guess.
No, which what I found confusing. I said, "What is going on?" I'm enjoying what I'm watching, but nothing is making any sense so far. Obviously there's going to be a payoff later with everything will unravel then, but at the moment I'm not following too well. And having just watched the magician, the old Bill Bixby show, which I just recorded the other day with John, where both of us said, "What the hell is going on in this episode?" I thought, "Oh, don't do this to me again with this film, please." But thankfully, didn't do that. And but yeah, so it's basically the two girls in the club, guys coming up to them as buying them drinks, and you find out a bit about each girl and what they're like, and then again, not much really happens. Then we find out that they work in an ad agency, publishing.
Well, they work at a publishing house. But Jimmy works at a.
Sorry, yes,
yeah,
publishing house. Yeah, the scenes in the publishing house didn't really do much for me. It was more establishing. Okay, they work here. They want to try and become an associate editor, but they've been told it's going to take about 4 years for that, 3 to 4 years. But yeah,
I guess it just gives them another.
I struggle with those scenes a bit. I thought, I don't know, it's not really moving anything on. The scenes inside that when they were living together in the railway apartment, whatever they call that, railway style apartment, they were good because you were starting to see friction amongst the girls. And it's going to work moving in together. Well, clearly it's not working. And as it is, as I've heard, I've roomed with a mate before and it was fine. We had no problems. But I've heard when women room together, it really it can get nasty.
Yeah, it can.
Yeah, I've heard firsthand that from somebody that when there was 3 women together, there were quarrels and arguments. So over petty shit.
Some more serious than others. I see what you're getting at with the lulls at the editing house or publishing house. Kind of wrote down my notes that it feels like to me that every time there's a lull or it starts to lull a little bit, they go to the club or another hit song comes on.
Yes.
And so it keeps the movie going.
Yeah.
In the third act, it slows down, but I think that's also in comparison, kind of like Boogie Nights, where it starts out so fast and it has so much energy, and you can't keep that up for a whole movie.
No.
Especially, with this one, with the long scene, kind of cold open, it's almost a half hour. You can't keep that energy going the whole movie.
No, it's not possible. But so that was my sort of minor gripe. Let's just get out there. It's not a major one. It's not a huge factor in my rating in the end, which ain't going to mean shit to anybody except myself. But it was just the publishing house scenes. Just they weighed it down to me. I would have much preferred more scenes inside the house or the apartment that the girls are living in to sort of learn more about them, how they're getting along, how things coming along. We find out that Alice has contracted herpes and
which they reveal that in a very strange way, because you're thinking, okay, it's early 80s, and he says he gave her an H infection. I'm like,
I was thinking it can't be what he's talking about because it wasn't known then.
They didn't really know what it was yet. I could see maybe hearing HIV, but it was like H infection. I was like, okay, it's got to be herpes, because he says G as well, so G for gonorrhea, which is the clap. So it was herpes, but
but I was
and herpes was mentioned earlier. So
but when I heard you guys, I gave it the big H as well. I thought, can't be that. It's too early. We're talking mid-80s, yes, but yeah.
I mean, people were getting in the early 80s, but they didn't know what it was.
They didn't know what the hell it was. That's right.
Yeah.
But there was one thing in here that really made me. There was a few things that made me laugh. This one that really made me laugh. I did like the Wizard of Oz characters inside the club. The guys dressed up as Wizard of Oz characters.
Hitman was just getting into it. With that Amy Stewart knock on wood.
It was vibing big time on that. So there was some generally funny scenes, but there was one that really made me laugh, and that was when they're inside the apartment, and Charlotte says to Alice something or another that sets her off, and she storms out of there. And she goes, Oh, it's typical of a Scorpio. And that made me laugh because I looked it up. Chloe 70 is a Scorpio like yours truly. I am one. And when I heard that, I said, yep, ain't that the truth? Because let me tell you now, for those of you who are not one, and those of you who are, for those of you who are, you know, someone can say something to you, and you can that it'll go in your ear, travel up to the brain, and get stored away in that memory bank for not months or years, but decades. That shit can be just laying dormant there. And I'll tell you now, I could come across somebody and they'll come to go, oh, Stu, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time. And I'll just go, remember back in October 3rd, 1994, when you said this to me and you fucking asked, why'd you say that for? And they'll go, what are you talking about? And it's just sitting there, just festering away for decades. So yeah, that is a trait that we have. You say something to us and we will just store it away and just slam it on you when you're not expecting it. And it could be 20 years later. So yeah. As they say, don't piss off a Scorpio. It's the worst thing you could possibly do because they don't forget and they don't forgive either. So yeah, that made me laugh.
Yeah, this movie makes me laugh more and more every time I see it. I find it very rewatchable. I do like, even like you said, you don't really care for the lady in the tramp diatribe.
No.
I enjoy it. I don't think it's very funny, but I find it interesting. And I don't know. It seems like, I think we can get into this topic, how this film is very much a product of the late 90s. And it's very, like we talked about with the dialogue with Stillman Stillman was technically before Tarantino, but after Mamet, but they're all very similar in the dialogue and how they reference pop culture. And with like the Miramax's films in the 90s and late 90s, Clerks and Empire Records and High Fidelity, like all these movies are coming out around this time. Although I think High Fidelity was maybe 2099, maybe that's a little too late. But
99 sounds right.
Maybe a year after this, but
I think High Fidelity was about 2000. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, very early 2000s.
I thought it was very on point or on brand for a 90s film like this. Of course, they even mentioned Stan Lee. They kind of mentioned Spider-Man and comic books and Disney movies. And I did like the Bambi analogy. I guess I didn't really think of that or even heard of that. Maybe it's something that he made it for the movie, maybe, but I could see how people could believe that people were just horrified or devastated watching Bambi, and it changed like their whole outlook on life.
Yeah, possibly, but I mean, with the Lady and Tramp dialogue, it just felt he was just trying too hard to do something funny, and it just wasn't working. Yeah,
he made it so, because I forget who. Well, you can see that Dez is the tramp, Alice is Lady, and then the loyal friend is supposed to be Josh.
Yeah,
because that's where they kind of connect for the first time. Even though she goes out with Dez after that, she kisses him right after that conversation.
Yeah.
After Dez goes, good times, goes to the DJ, and that would have been pretty cool. Josh has that other diatribe about, thanks for inviting me here, and he's having so much fun, and he's telling Dez how proud he should be of his accomplishments of running this nightclub, and he's like, yeah, I am. Because Dez is such a kind of a douche, but it would be kind of it would be a lot of fun to run a club like that.
Well, yes, it would, but let's get into the similarities between the club and the real Studio 54, who were laundering money in the roof bags. So there's that obvious reference there. I picked that straight away, and I said,
yeah. Dez was doing a little bit of drugs. He's doing some coke in the office one time, but there isn't much drug use overall.
No, there's not.
There's very little of it in here.
Yeah. No cursing as well. Very happy, no cursing, no F-bombs in this film. Unlike Boogie Nights, where we were peppered with them everywhere. There's no F bombs in this one. There's hardly anything. So that was refreshing to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems like going back to the publishing house, that seems like a way to get these characters to talk about pop culture. They're talking about literature there and at the apartment. You know, what would your dream book be? It's so funny how he talks down to her. That guy's name, the redhead from the publishing house. He's dating Holly, or he goes home with Holly, and he kind of talks down to Alice after she says she wants to publish some. Her dream book would be like unpublished J.D. Salinger writings, like short stories.
Jimmy Steinway guy?
No, not Steinway. The redhead from he worked at the publishing house too.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't a yuppie.
Another one.
Yeah,
I got it. Yeah.
But yeah, he tells her he mentions, I think, some literature critics or historians and how they, just tore apart Salinger and talked about how he's a terrible writer. And
it
was just like, I have no idea who these people are, but like I kind of get what he's saying, and it still makes it funny to me, and like how he's like just such an asshole to her. All she wants to do is publish J.D. Salinger, who's considered such a great writer, and he's just like, it was almost like the equivalent of like, well, Pauline Kael said this was shit, so
of course
so you're stupid.
Yeah, of course, the very, very start, or the start of the 80s, the end of 1980, Salinger become infamous again for the Lennon murder. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder if that was a reference in there to the murder of John Lennon with
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, didn't even think of that till now, actually. But yeah, first of all, what I really like about this film is very pro disco. It wears disco badge with pride, as we know by the end scene, which I thought was quite funny on the train, and
perfect way to end the film.
Yeah, I mean, believable, absolutely not, but yeah, it's a great way to say, hey, I love disco, and I'm not ashamed to say it at all.
Yeah, I believe in that essay you talked about that's in the Criterion. They talk about how his love for the disco era is unironic, and that's very, very apparent. That he is not ashamed, and he does not like it ironically. He's all about disco, and I'm the same way. I don't ironically like it. I genuinely love listening to the music.
Yeah.
I mean, I get embarrassed sometimes. It's like I'm in a car with somebody and like on the radio, and they're like, "This song," I'm like, I mean, I'm embarrassed, but I'm still like, I'm embarrassed, but I don't care that I'm embarrassed.
After I'd watched this
good song, and I don't care what you say.
Exactly. After I watched this, and that night when I was going to work, I popped in the CD in the car, the Andrew True Connections album, and I listened to the whole damn thing. 5 songs, 38 minutes of pure perfect disco. Yeah, no problem saying it at all. The only thing that kind of bugged me was the speech towards the end. And we're jumping about the place, but we'll keep this non-linear. The speech they go, was it Josh? I think it was. He said, he goes, I love disco, and I'm always going to love disco, and it'll never die. I mean, I don't know if he's trying to be funny or something by saying that.
It's being prophetic about the time. He's very he kind of waxes poetic about it throughout the film.
Yeah.
Even in the first scene in the diner, he's talking about he's never even been to a disco, but he just likes to know that they exist and wants there to be all these great places to go to when that time in your life comes, when you're have more of a social life and kind of just starting out in your adult life, I guess, finding love, finding your career, because that's kind of what this movie's about. It's about both of those things.
Yeah.
Inside of the disco era, basically.
Do these people seem like the flag wavers for disco? Because I'm telling you now, I lived through the disco era of the 70s. I lived in the 80s beyond, obviously. New wave was huge in 1980. Massive. It's what killed, as grunge killed metal, new wave killed disco. So do these people seem like the sort of last bastions, the flag wavers of disco. So it's not dying. It'll never die. And they're still religiously going to the club, which we never know what the name of is. It's just we're going to the club. Is that what it seem like to you?
I think it's a variety of views on disco. I think like Josh unabashedly loves it. And he, as he said, he's a loyal adherent to the disco movement. And I think Alice she's a very genuine person. It feels like that she kind of, I mean, she's experimenting. It seems like this is kind of like her first time doing anything fun, basically. But like people like Dez, you can see he maybe likes disco, but I think he just likes what goes along with it. The club scene, having the power at the club, doing the drugs,
Girls.
Sleeping with the women. He doesn't really care about the music as much.
Yeah.
And there's people like that. There's Steinway, Jimmy Steinway, who's basically going to the club for his class status. You know, it's for his work, you could say, trying to get the clients in. But I mean, a lot of these, I mean, they're all yuppies.
But yeah. That was what I was going to get to in a minute, but yeah.
Yeah, they're all yuppies. Stillman was a yuppie, so he's kind of art imitating life here. They're all Ivy Leaguers. I guess, in fact, all three of the, I guess, bourgeois doomed love films they're all Ivy Leaguers, like fresh out of college or just they're still in college.
Yeah.
So it's kind of all the same, you know, cast of characters every time, but I guess there's just varying degrees of how genuine they are and how much they like disco and for the right reasons or not. And it's kind of a varied.
Yeah, there's that one conversation where they say, "Well, you're a yuppie. You're the epitome of a yuppie." And I thought, well, you basically all are. And it seemed to me that the women generally like going there. They generally enjoy it. The guys seem to, they seem to be sort of hangers on and skirt chasers. Yeah, because that's where the women were at the clubs.
Jimmy and Tom especially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I had a little bit of trouble with those characters, with them and their believability of it. Even as much as Josh going, "Oh, I love this guy, he'll never die," but no, it's just words, man. You know, he really seemed like the biggest yuppie of them all. Really, an assistant DA.
A little fun fact for you: the unemployment office that Jimmy Steinway goes in and out of, and I think there's a couple of scenes right outside of it.
Yeah,
that is pretty much directly across the street from Studio 54.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay, what was it on? That was 17th Avenue, I think it was, from memory. I don't know, or 57th. I can't remember.
Yeah, there's some trivia somewhere where you can find the exact addresses of them. They tore that building down. Now it's the unemployment office. Now it's like condos, but
of course,
yeah, it was across the street from 54.
Yeah.
So I wonder, because I know 54 was changed into that theater house, I think in the early teens, like 2012-ish. I'm not sure if it closed for COVID or reopened. I don't know what it's doing right now, but
should have been preserved, man. Should have been.
Yeah. Well, I hear they've still preserved the entryway, the entrance, the doors, and the entrance, I guess, is preserved pretty well.
Nice. Yeah. Don't tear down all the history of it. I mean, yes, it didn't last very long. Lasted a lot less than people think, which we'll cover next time. Sorry. But yeah, don't rip away your history. You just, you got to preserve some of it. But yeah, that was a problem I had with the characters. Unlike Studio 54, a game we'll cover next time, they were so parallel different. And even with ones in Boogie Nights, you could see them going to Studio 54. Amber Waves and Dirk Diggler all going there. These ones, also, this club seemed to be. It seemed to be was obviously a club. It was popular, but it felt like it was the last of the people who into that movement, for lack of a better word, the disco movement, were all congregating into this place as if it was the Titanic, the sinking ship of disco. But they're all still going there and meeting there, but it was not. It just seemed like disco was dying. So the last days of disco, it's very well done that they've done it, because it's not. It's not like it's the burgeoning disco of '77, where it was unstoppable, it was everywhere. It was literally the last days, so I've got to give Stillman out. It's very, very well made in that way.
I was thinking about today actually that the film starts out so I guess with so much energy and that we talked about that first 30 minutes or so, and then it kind of there's other scenes that are great too and a lot of fun in the club, but there's diminishing returns. There's the scenes become fewer and farther in between. By the end, the club is a shell of its former self and there's not as much energy, and it seems like it's almost like the film is the club itself, like you said, it's dying. This disco era is dying.
Yeah, the air is being leaked out of the balloon. It's yeah.
So you're never going to get that high you get with the first 27 minutes of the film.
No.
By the end of it, it's gone.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he tried to kind of do it that way, where he's going to,
I think so,
film a tremendous club scene in the beginning and then have some other decent ones that just kind of peter out throughout the rest of the film.
Well, we get, and spoilers for this, but we get towards the end of the film, we get the bust, we get most of the publishing house crew or cast on unemployment because they've merged with Simon and Schuster, and so it all tumbles down to a downer ending, but it lifts up with an upbeat ending. So he doesn't leave. He doesn't give you the high that you have that first 27 minutes, but he doesn't drag you straight down to the ground and go, "Well, it's the last days. We told you that, and this is the way." Yeah.
I guess you call that like a wistful ending, or just giving you some fond memories.
Yeah, just
it's a love letter to disco, right?
Oh, absolutely. The most of all three, I dare say, of all three films we're talking about, without a doubt.
That's what I mean. I guess I can identify with his speech at the end a little easier than you can, just in that context that it's a love letter. It might be ridiculous what he's saying, or maybe it wasn't the greatest take that they recorded on film with him, but I can see what he's saying. It's the movement can live on forever type of sentiment that he has. And then with that final OJ's song in the subway, it just kind of seems like it goes together.
Yeah.
Just that sentiment and that speech and that final ridiculous scene.
Or do we treat that speech as a sort of a speech of delusion?
Could be.
Yeah. Do we treat it as something do we say you're delusional because it's crashing down around you? You can see that.
We can say he's delusional. He's bipolar, crazy, whatever you want to call him, as he's called throughout the film.
Yeah.
But I would still say that he's the most genuine person there.
The others are quite
him and Alice.
Alice. Yeah.
And I think he might even think it's ridiculous, but I think he still believes it. And he really feels that way about the era.
Yeah. And he got his chance to say that he's arrest this clown or whatever it was. He finally got to say that.
Book this clown.
Book this clown. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. That was a good
one.
What
did you we haven't talked about the gatekeepers much. We talked about Bernie a little bit. But what makes me laugh more so like this time watching it is Van. He's the kind of the head bouncer. He's the
Yeah,
guy outside on jerk patrol, as he says.
yeah.
I love the faces. The first time you see him, he's given like this face. He's looking over the crowd of people trying to get in. He's just unimpressed. Does not give a shit. He's like kind of like Rebel a little bit
Mm,
in 54.
yeah.
But Because I know Rebel had plenty of people to do that for him. He
Oh
did it
yeah.
himself. But
Yes.
um, yeah, like I don't know. It's almost like that guy has some kind of like an accent that I can't place.
It sounded
He
Russian to
talks
me.
very weird.
It's like a Russian accent. I thought we're going to do the Russian bouncer again. The whole you'll come in, you'll go home. I thought, oh no, we're not going to go that route, are we? But
Because his voice changes throughout the movie, like from scene to scene, he's talking different. Even like in the middle of
yeah,
a sentence, like his voice goes like kind of like up and down. And I never like heard Russian out of it, but you can tell by the end, like I guess he's supposed to be. I guess he could have been a transplant, but he's been there quite a while.
mm,
Like he's
yeah,
probably been there 10 years, type of thing.
yeah. With the accent, you've still got the accent, but it's fading away and moving into the
Mm-hmm.
current climate that you live in. It's similar with Australians when a lot of Australians, excuse me, move from Australia to America. When you hear them on interviews on television, actors in particular, and they have the American twang to their voice, they don't hear it, but we certainly hear it. So yeah, I get totally what you're saying with that.
I'm drinking a vodka tonic in celebration of Last Days of
Oh
Disco.
really? I'm just drinking coffee, iced coffee. That's all.
It's because of the vodka tonic conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Usually like gin and tonics, but I was running low on gin.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, that kind of fed into their more of their pop culture pointless chit chat that they tend to have throughout every scene.
Well, that's what clubs are, though. Basically, you
Yeah.
clubs I've been to them. You know, this is basically you're not going to get a deep conversation. You're going to get mindless chit chat,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just basically guys trying to pick up girls, girls vetting guys, saying, "Do I like him? Don't
Yeah,
I?"
I thought it was
Still
a
a lot.
perfect snapshot of kind of what that's like going to a club in any era,
Oh yeah, not just then,
not
but
just
now even.
disco.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
And I find that this film, I think, has the most realistic disco club scenes of any disco film I've seen, outside of the one major problem, and that everyone's talking at a reasonable volume and they can
yeah,
hear each
yes,
other
and without
over the
without
music.
thumping, pulsating music, and everyone's just speaking like you and I are. I thought
Yeah.
no shouting to people's ears. Which
I
yeah,
understand why they did it. You
of
can't
course.
just have characters yelling at each other for 2 hours.
No,
But it was kind of like Deadwood. I forgot who wrote Deadwood. You remember? Do you recall?
I should do because my favorite show the last 20 years was
Yeah.
Milken. No, Arnon Milken or something like that. I can't remember his name.
But he talked about how everyone's saying cocksucker and fucker in there. They didn't they didn't
Yeah,
really have that.
and then no, they never had
Like,
that. He was just trying to modernize the West.
yeah.
Yeah,
He said it like he tried it even like writing and maybe even filming some of it like that,
yeah,
to be period accurate with the language. He said
yeah,
everyone sounds like Yosemite Sam.
yeah,
One tarnation, it's like everyone's just ridiculous. So it
yeah.
makes it more palatable to I guess a modern audience to use that updated language.
He does. Yeah. I also thought with Al Swearingen in Deadwood, I thought it was very funny, a nice, sort of comedic nod to what you're going to hear a lot of in Deadwood and all sorts of.
David Milch. David Milch.
That's
Milch.
it. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I thought it was Millage, but it's spelled Milch. So it's just Milch? Or is it like a millage? I don't know.
I think it might even be Milik. It depends on if he's maybe
Milk?
Eastern Europe. Milik. It might be Eastern European. I don't know. Or
Okay.
have European background where the CH is pronounced as a K. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's the whole volume of the level of volume that they're speaking to each other in the club is, yeah. I guess that's a suspension of disbelief you got to have for that.
Yeah.
It's a minor one. It's not one that bothers me at all.
I mean, I've been to a lot of clubs, especially in my, my college years, and there were some areas that were a little quieter, but you still have to speak at an above normal volume to
If they were in
hear
a jazz
anything.
bar, maybe you could get away with that sort of thing, but not with the disco.
Yeah. And everyone would be shushing you if you're in a jazz bar.
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
But like, I got some hints of like TGIF watching this.
Yeah, a little bit. I haven't
But
seen
like
it
with
for quite a while, but I know.
yeah.
Yeah.
But with TGIF, there's a lot of archetypes. I mean, there's archetypes here, but they're more I don't know how to describe it, like sub archetypes. It's not about, because like in TGIF, you have the one tremendous dancer, the really showy dancer, that can do flips and like all these crazy dance moves. And you got the, Jeff Goldblum's like this seedy club owner. I mean, we kind of have a douchey club owner, but he isn't like a bombastic character, I guess, it's kind of reined in. But like, there aren't any big dance numbers in this movie at all. Everything feels very natural and very realistic.
But the difference there, Eric, is that with Last Days of Disco, they're recreating that era. With Thank God It's Friday, they're living that era.
Yeah.
So you're relying strictly on memory with Last Days of Disco.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Thank God It's Friday, you're living it. So you know exactly what you're doing because it is what it is at the time.
Yeah.
So
I just meant like more realistic and like a typical night out at the club,
Yeah.
There wasn't anything too crazy. Everyone's like an average dancer to poor dance. There's some bad dancers that the douche from the publishing house, the redhead, he's a terrible dancer.
Oh, cool.
I thought Alice was, she's decent. Her and Charlotte and Tom, and I really like Alice and Tom dancing in the beginning to Everybody Dance by Chic.
Yeah,
which might be my favorite disco song, but everything seems very natural.
Yeah, they weren't trying to outdo each other or show off or try and be the center of attention on the floor. It was very natural, as you said. Yeah. Which you got to, do you question that decision? Because when you watch things such as the Studio 54 documentary, it's pretty outrageous, some of the dancing in there, and some of the things that went on, with white horses coming through on the floor, and so it seems very scaled back and very low key, which is I think is a good thing, is because it doesn't sort of try and take you away from it and say nobody would be doing this really, they'd just be dancing. So why try and ramp it up?
You could argue, I'm not sure if it's what Stillman was thinking, but you could argue that it's because this is the last days of disco. Disco's dying. This is the early 80s. This is past the glory years of 54. This is on its downswing,
Yeah, it's on its, definitely.
Rebel was already out of there by what, 80, 79, 80?
No, he was already facing prison, I think, at that time or something.
Yeah.
So
he's kind of out of the picture. I mean, I know he's back and forth, but so it's kind of on its downswing in the early 80s. So you could say it's like, well, there isn't as much crazy stuff. It's a bit subdued because wasn't as crazy in the early 80s, even though, I don't know, I'm sure it was.
It wasn't, but then you got to ask yourself, well, are they borrowing from Studio 54, as we spoke earlier, with the money in the bags, in the roof?
Mm-hmm. It's a similar looking club as well. On the inside, there's the big balcony that you can overlook the whole dance floor. And
you probably have to suggest that would have been a lot of clubs would have been like that, where you can have that. All right, they won't have the scale and size of a Studio 54, but with the legal goings on, are they are they focusing on Studio 54, or are these club owners so stupid as to follow what 54 did and say, well, we'll try that. They got busted, but we'll try it and see if we can make the same sort of money that Rebel and Schrager were making.
Yeah. I'm guessing Stillman wanted to emulate 54 and just, he couldn't get the rights to it. So he said, okay, it's, the movie's not about 54 anyways. It's about the era. So I'll just make the club very similar to 54. And it's also, I guess it's a nice way to tie up your story about the death of disco with the death of the club.
Have we ever heard about why we got 3 films in 97 within, say, 18 months of each other about disco? What was the resurgence with it, with filmmakers?
I don't know.
Not complaining by any stretch. I'm just curious.
Because, it seems like 54 was the rights to that was kind of a hot commodity at the time. I know the movie bombed, but it seemed like that story was, I wonder if because the documentary came out later, like maybe 2008, maybe the documentary come out. That one on Netflix is even a little later than that.
Oh, that's 2018.
2018.
Yeah.
There was another one, I think, wasn't there in 08, maybe?
Possibly.
I can't remember. But anywho, I wonder if there was a book written in the late 90s.
There have been a couple. Not the late 90s. There was one there was a book in, I'd be lying if I said I knew exactly what year. There was Schrager's massive coffee table book, which I have, which I was kindly sent by the NES. That monster Studio 54 book, which is incredible. A lot of it's pictures, but there are, there's story as well. But anything to actually spark the flame of the disco era, I can't think of nothing around that time. I don't know what it is. I'm just, yeah.
Boogie Nights was a big hit, so I could see, that was 97, so 98.
That was late. That was late on these. We got that, but we got that in, I can't remember when we said we got it. I know it was January. I think we got it January 98. So it would have been earlier 97.
Yeah, but I meant, in terms of the US.
Yeah, and so, but then that would mean that Stillman would have to hurriedly write something, get the money for it, make it, and get it out.
Well, he had so for Metropolitan, he had wrote it, I think 4 years before it was made. And Barcelona came out in 94. And that's where he got the idea for Last Days of Disco, filming some of the club scenes. But it seems like he's always writing beforehand, many years in advance. He's always got something on the burner. So it wouldn't surprise me if he had this ever since at least 94. And then opportunity arose. Boogie Nights was a hit. I can do this disco thing. He was still kind of a commodity at the time, so he got a little bit of backing. Because Barcelona was his first studio film. Because Metropolitan surprisingly made like $3 million off of it was like a $225,000 budget, something like that.
Okay.
So I'd never heard of it, so I don't even know how it made $3 million, but it did.
Yeah.
And obviously the accolades that came with it, with the Oscar nom and some other critics awards and nominations. Well, so he could get a little bit of money. And
back then people were going to the theaters, Eric. That's why. So they'll get money. It's not like these days where it's streaming and other nefarious ways of watching movies. But yeah, you actually had to go in and pay your money to watch a film. That
sure
naughty,
did.
nasty, horrible way of watching something that an artist created.
And I wonder if, so like I said, Boogie Nights, big hit. They also had a lot of songs. The soundtrack was a big hit. And you think with Last Days of Disco, they didn't get the rights to 54. So they must just put all of their money into the soundtrack. They originally wanted Winona Ryder to play Alice.
No.
And they sent her agent the script and the offer.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, the editor had the same editor had edited Kids and recommended Sevigny to Stillman, brought her in, loved her. She got the part, and Ryder's agent didn't didn't return the call for like 4 days. By that time, it was parts already gone. You know, it's 70s now.
Would have been too much of a distraction. Winona Ryder and Beckinsale, very similar looking girls. You needed two girls who were very vastly visually different.
Yeah. And but yeah, I mean, Ryder would have commanded a much bigger salary than 70 at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm sure they saved a lot of money in the cast because it's all unknowns. You know, it's not. This is basically a stage play that's filmed. You know, you only need 3 settings. You need the apartment, publishing house, and the club. Basically, that's all you need.
Yeah.
And so it must have been very cheap to film. Probably only took, you know, a month tops. So yeah, all that money went to the soundtrack, and
your money was going to the soundtrack. And those artists, you know, the ones we mentioned before, would be making a nice chunk of change from these movies. Yeah, from these because all these, save for Last Days of Disco, Boogie Nights got 2 volumes of soundtracks. Studio 54 got 2 volumes of soundtracks. This one could have easily had 2 volumes as well.
Yeah,
really could have easily had one.
It only had. I've seen the disc, the CD on Amazon. I forget what the price was, but there's only like 13 or 17 tracks, and it was obviously long been out of print. So I think that's why it's a little pricier. But you can't sell this as a soundtrack these days. There's no way you can get the rights to all that. It costs way too much money.
Yeah, but
it's just easier just to look up the soundtrack on IMDb and, you know, just buy them all individually.
Yeah, they basically intertwine. You get Amy Stewart, and you get also Chic on other soundtracks, and you get Sylvester on one, or a couple of them. I don't know, but you would have had a hell of a headache hoping that your film of the 3 didn't overlap with songs, especially the last 2 didn't. You know, you would have actually with Last Days of Disco and 54 pretty much being shot, I'd say, concurrently with each other.
Yeah,
it would have been. I don't think the filmmakers would have been conferring with each other, saying, "Hey, you using this song?" Because I just always said, "Screw it, we're going to use it." And if it's in the other one, it's in the other one. Too bad. But
yeah, I mean, Amy Stewart performs live in 54. Knock on wood. It's Knock on wood is in Last Days of Disco, but it's obviously a live performance in 54, which is cool to see in 54. But I didn't find it all too great of a performance. I mean, it's kind of hard. It's being filmed in a club, and I don't know, the vocals aren't the best. And
we'll get to that. We'll get to
20 years older, but
we'll get to all that next time. But yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. But yeah, the soundtracks in these things are absolutely stellar. I have got Boogie Nights ones. I've got volume 2 of Studio 54. I'm trying to track down volume 1, but there is in the UK, they released them as a double on one. So one disc was volume 1, one disc was volume 2. I've got that in my Discogs cart to get sent to me. So now it's got to try and track down the Last Days of Disco one, which I did look up yesterday on Discogs, and you can get it, but you're around the $10 mark for a good used copy, which is okay. But I want to have more on the shelf in my soundtrack section. Yeah. But in all honesty, the harder one to get are the Boogie Nights ones, believe it or not. The most popular financial.
I had volume 1.
Right. Volume 2.
But
volume 2 is kind of difficult to get. You got to even the Studio 54 ones are getting tough to find now. Over here, anyway, in the US, you can get the first. You get them both. We usually got $3 or $4 on Discogs for a seller, because they were big sellers at the time. So there's a lot of them out there. But if you're over here, it's not as easy to get them. And of course, with Studio 54, Australia put out its own stupid version, which was just cherry picking tracks off both volumes and putting them into one, which is just shit. I don't know why they've done it, but yeah, I won't be having that on the shelf. No, thank you. But anything else we want to go into with Last Days of Disco?
I mean, I could talk about it forever, but Um, did you like the conversation about how you can tell if somebody's gay? And then she thought that Des has a gay mouth.
Yeah.
It
I
was
mean,
at Rex's.
it was fine. Yeah. I mean, this
Because
gay
they have
guy.
like all their conversations seem to be like these debates, they're
Mm,
debating, Marvel, or I should say Stan Lee, and Disney movies and literature and gay, and you couldn't lick the boots of my real gay friends, and I don't want to lick the boots of your real gay friends.
yeah.
I thought some of the dialogue was pretty funny there.
Yeah.
Like Des is such a douche, but I like him more and more every time I watch it. I just find him funnier. He's still a despicable character, but I find it because like the first time I watched it, I mean, I just saw kind of the despicable nature of him, and that's all I thought of him. And then he got funnier and funnier, like especially him explaining how he's he's sleeping with all these girls and he's sleeping with too many of them, so he has to tell them all that he's gay so he can move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
his
yeah.
explanation is always been watching Wild Kingdom with Marlon Perkins.
Which
I
upsets.
never watched that show. Did you watch that?
Never heard of it.
Hmm.
Never heard of it. No. But yeah, look, conversations like that were fine with me. It didn't bother me. Didn't really spark my interest either. But that's sort of
Mhm.
there. Um, I don't know. I guess I have to get acclimatized to Stillman's way of how his characters speak. I'm not used to it. This is my first film of his I've ever seen.
Mhm.
It's also similar to a lot of people probably watch Reservoir. I remember seeing Reservoir Dogs when it came out. I saw it in a small theater, and with that opening scene in the diner where they're talking about Madonna and all that, I never heard characters speak as quick as that, as
Yeah.
as fast as that. And it took me a little while to get used to this guy's way of writing. Um, so
There's
it's
a
the
lot
same.
of there's a lot of scenes that are like that
Mm,
in Last Days of Disco. Very similar.
yeah. So it's just getting accustomed to the way the filmmaker, or the writer and the director has shaped this thing, because everybody's different. Like a Kevin Smith one, you just sit there and you think, "This is just shut up about Star Wars. I don't want to hear about Star Wars. I don't want to hear about Ewoks. I don't care." I'm not interested, but a lot of people do like it, and a lot of people are really heavily invested in it. But yeah, so it's just getting used to Stillman as a filmmaker. I'll go back and watch his other two if I can find them somewhere along the way.
Criterion has all three, even individually and as a 3-pack.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So you can get the whole trilogy on Criterion if you want. I would say just rent Metropolitan. I don't think if you watch it and really like it, yeah, get the Criterion. Be the only way to get it, but I'm not going to buy it. It was okay,
Oh, okay.
but
Yeah.
nothing to write home about. It was slow, similar dialogue, but it is. I mean, like I can see the criticism of this film saying it's slow. They're talking about stuff I don't give a shit about. But for me, it's more of like a hangout movie, right? I like the characters, and I don't mind hanging out with them while they're bullshitting about nonsense, you know, mostly because there's a cool soundtrack in the background to keep my attention.
All
And I
right.
do find this stuff somewhat interesting. But I just think it all works together well. I think you need all of it to work well for me. Like Metropolitan, there's no club scenes, there's not a lot of energy. It's all these yuppie kids, like mostly in these stuffy bougie like debutante balls that they have. They're
Right.
talking about these deb balls, and it's just like sitting around a room in a stuffy room talking about this stuff, and it's very slow.
Is it similar to Richard Linklater's Slacker? Because boy, I struggle.
So I've only seen the probably first 20 minutes of Slacker, maybe.
Yeah,
um
it was just inane conversations for 100 minutes. I mean, it's
yeah.
enjoyable, but when I first watched that, I thought,
Yeah, I didn't dislike it. I can't remember. I think it was late at night. I was like, oh, I'll finish this later. And then it was like it got taken off of whatever like channel I was watching on. It was on cable at the time or something. But
yeah,
um yeah, it's a Barcelona. I'm intrigued by. I think that one will. I'm more intrigued by that one than Metropolitan. I think it'll be better.
okay,
But yeah, I would say just rent them first, and then if you really like them, then buy them. But save
yeah,
your money until then.
yeah.
Last Days of Disco, I think, is it's just Metropolitan can't hold a candle to it. It's just boring, mostly stuffy.
Okay. Well, I do want to see this again. Last Days.
Mhm.
I want to watch it again and pick up the bits that I missed, or the bits I didn't quite grasp the first time around, and go over it and go over it and go over it, and get and
We
see it the
we
way
could
you're seeing it, because you've seen it as many times as you have.
yeah. Also like with Boogie Nights, everything is filmed so meticulously and purposefully, the cinematography, how everything is staged and hold on a second here. People are trying to talk to me. Trying to find you on Zoom here. The heck happened? There you are. Sorry. So yeah, like especially with the opening shot of Boogie Nights, it's these very complicated camera movements and everything has to be choreographed for like a 5-minute scene basically. And it's similar to that, but it's a much more on a much smaller scale. Like in the opening scene, you see him walk in and you kind of get a glimpse of the club. There's a little bit of a tracking shot, but then it's like you follow the girls up and then the camera pauses and waits.
Yeah.
And then Des comes out of the background of the foreground, chasing Jennifer Beals out into the street. And it's you kind of follow these characters through the club in a little similar way to Boogie Nights, but it feels a little more natural.
Yeah.
I mean, I prefer those shots in Boogie Nights. I really like those tracking shots.
It doesn't feel as kinetic. It doesn't feel as kinetic.
Yeah.
Boogie Nights.
Yeah, definitely. But I did enjoy it. I thought it this kind of added to the overall mood or feel of the film. Kind of made you feel like you were there, but it didn't take you out of it. Like, whenever I see a shot like that in Boogie Nights or like The Player or something like that, I'm thinking, wow, what a great shot. That I wonder how many takes it took them to pull this off. I wonder if they used a big crane to start the shot off and then kind of swoop down. And
the two differences between the way Boogie Nights was shot and Last Days of Disco was shot, you can tell Boogie Nights was shot by a guy in his mid-20s, very enthusiastic, very energetic, whereas Last Days of Disco is shot by a guy in his mid to late 40s, a lot more reserved, calmer, and not, wild and crazy as a man in his mid-20s is with Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what it seems like.
Yeah. But I still enjoyed it. Kind of the feel or the look of it. But yeah, it wasn't too showy.
I wouldn't
like I said, it can be kind of distracting sometimes if it's too showy, but it's felt very natural.
It is. If it was as kinetic and wildly shot as Boogie Nights, it probably would have distracted me. I think, oh no, another Boogie Nights style film.
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact it was a lot more reserved and laid back in its approach. So yeah, that was a blessing to have that, because Boogie Nights is a tough watch. You go through so much in 2.5 hours that to go through that again would have been a bit of a stretch.
We could talk a little more about Disco and Demolition Night if you want.
We can do that. Yeah.
The background with the shock jock from Chicago. His name was Steve. What is it here? Steve Dahl. Because in '78 and prior, he was on this rock station, and they repurposed their station. They switched from rock to disco, he was out of a job because he was a rock DJ. And so he kind of took that pretty hard. And he got hired on at a rival radio station. Let's see if I can find the actual radio station here. Radio station was WLUP 97.9 FM.
Right.
It's now called WCKL. But yeah, they were charging tickets 98 cents for people who showed up to the game with a disco record to destroy. Because it was a double header at night. It was an evening double header, which is, I can't remember the last time that happened. They have double headers, but it's like a day night double header. And there's one game will start at 1 in the afternoon, go for 3 hours, and then they get a couple hours break, and then there's another one at 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So
I would gladly have gone to that, Eric, but not to burn him, but to save him.
yeah.
Want to get rid of him? Here. Here's $1. Okay, what the entrance you pay, give it to me. Don't burn it, give it to me. I'll take it.
Leave it to Disco Stew to save Disco.
Damn right.
Yeah, I had actually seen that footage before Last Days of Disco. I can't remember what it was on. It wasn't on the 54 documentary. It was on something else, disco related. But
I'd seen it.
I was just kind of shocked at it. It was such a crazy scene. It was a riot. The White Sox had to forfeit the second game because the explosion on the field was too big, kind of wrecked the field, and thousands of people, rushed the field, and it was just anarchy down there.
It was just whipped up frenzy, a mob mentality is all it was. But
they said 50,000 people showed up and they were expecting 20.
Jesus.
And 20 would have been 5,000 more than usual because the White Sox weren't very good that year. And
the biggest crowd they got was for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. And he had all his followers, his Disco Dive followers. I think there was a name for him. But a lot of them were turned out for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they blew up those records and people were throwing records all over the field from the stands. And it was just
absolutely breaks my heart hearing that. I'm just, oh boy. I would have grabbed my 7-year-old self and said, don't throw them away. I'll take it. Yeah.
Of course, people these days, they like to debate if it was a racist event or a homophobic event.
Oh, for God's sake. They didn't like the music. They hated it. And
I mean, obviously, minorities and homosexuals in general were embraced by the disco and were very much a big part of the disco movement, if you want to call it a movement. But this was guys who just thought disco sucked.
Yeah. I wonder how many of those were metalheads listening to Judas Priest and not knowing that their lead singer was a gay closeted gay man then, but very openly gay now. So, man, Judas Priest, but Rob Halford is, but whatever. But what was I getting at? I was going to say, you're talking about that shock jock whose station reformatted from rock to disco. That reminds me of WKRP in Cincinnati's first episode, where they went from classical into rock. So you had Dr. Johnny Fever played by Howard Hessman, the late Howard Hessman, who was a rock guy and was playing his boring old Steely Dan and all that. And then they get told halfway through, we're changing everything. And Gary Sandy, the station manager, puts up the poster of Kiss on the wall. That's it. Turns a fucking record off. That's it. And puts on Ted Nugent or something halfway through. So that reminds me of that. But the other way around, he's gone from being what he loves, rock, into disco, and then holding this rally. So reminded me of that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, man. Look, let's rate this film. Give our final thoughts on it.
All right. Well, when you approached me a few months ago about doing these episodes, you're like, you want to do episode on Boogie Nights and Last Days of Disco in 54. I was like, yeah, you're thanking me. Oh, thanks so much. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, okay, Boogie Nights, my top 5 favorite films. Last Days of Disco is right up there as well. I've even been looking for one of the films in the top 5 to kick out to put Days of Disco in.
Oh, really?
I love it that much. I will say, so I remember when you rated Boogie Nights last episode, I gave it a 10. Although, should I be rating for what I feel it is? Or, I mean, because I know Boogie Nights has flaws, but the flaws don't bother me. So should I, like Citizen Kane is maybe a perfect film. It's not my favorite film, but I could see how, somebody would give, or I would give Citizen Kane 5 stars, rating 10 out of 10, but then it's not my top 5, it's not in my top 5 because they're my favorite films, they're movies I really love. Citizen Kane I like it quite a bit, but
Well,
should I be rating it of what the film is, or like my fondness for it?
Well, that's it. That's like me with Psycho. Everybody listens to the MMC knows I love Psycho. I'm an idiot. I just buy every format of Psycho possible.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be my top 5. And I think it's a 10
Yeah.
movie. It's a perfect 10. But it wouldn't be my top 5 because it's not one that I have a fondness for as much as I do. It's not above the ones. And the ones, if you heard my top 5, you probably think you're an idiot. You don't even know what the hell cinema is.
But would you rate your favorite film a 10 out of 10?
No, probably not.
Okay.
No. See, probably my favorite film of all time is Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. Horrible movie. I've never made any bones about that. Excuse me. But it's I would rate it a 10. Actually, no, I wouldn't rate it a 10. I'd probably rate it like a 7 or an 8. Because to give it a 10 is just idiotic. But it's absolutely my top 1 or 2 favorite films. So it's very weird.
That makes sense. I was just, after the last episode, I was like, well, I probably shouldn't have rated it a 10 if, like, even I admit that there's flaws. It's just I love the film so much. I could probably re-rate it as like a, 9 or a 9.5.
Doesn't mean because you can, doesn't mean you should. Put it in your top 5. Doesn't mean because it is a 10 it has to go on the top 5. Because you can have
no, I never, I never thought that way. I just thought that if there's a film that you love that's in your top 5, wouldn't you, would you rate it a 10 out of 10? Which you answered, but that's what I was kind of wondering. Do you just judge it based off its scholarly merits? If you want to put it that way,
or just things like even I'd say probably The Monsters' Revenge, the 1981 TV movie would be my top 5, and it's just because it's a big part of me and my youth. Same with Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. Same with probably Wacko, which is that horror comedy spoof from '83, whatever it was. A lot of people just ragged on it. I can watch it endlessly.
Yeah.
The only one that would really be in my top 5, I would think, if I really thought about it hard, that is outside that box of B movies or movies that people look down on, would be probably Halloween. Halloween to me is a perfect film. That is a 10. That would be my top 5. Probably the only one, I'd imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are a couple of movies in my top 10 that I would say are maybe perfect films, but
which ones?
Clockwork Orange.
Okay.
It's in my top 5, and that I would consider. I mean, Kubrick's my favorite director, consider him to be pretty much basically flawless. And especially with Clockwork Orange, I mean, even with Kubrick, you can debate, what's his best? Is it 2001? Is it Clockwork Orange? Is it Doctor Strangelove? All very different films. The lighting alone makes Barry Lyndon.
That's how you can pick a snob. If they go Barry Lyndon's the best one for the lighting, it's like, get out of here, man. I don't want to. Barry Lyndon's brilliantly shot. Don't get me wrong, but it's a boring ass movie.
All that candlelight,
The candle,
natural lighting.
one candle lit the whole room. Who cares?
Yeah, I like Barry Lyndon, but it's one of my
It's the forgotten Kubrick.
least favorites of Kubrick's.
Of that Warner Brothers run that he had from Clockwork Orange through to and including Eyes Wide Shut. It's the one that's forgotten the most.
Yeah,
Sandwiched in between Clockwork Orange, The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, Eyes Wide Shut, which I think it's Eyes Wide Shut is one I don't particularly like, but I find when I do watch it, I can't stop. I have to watch the whole thing. I'm compelled to keep watching, even though I've seen it before, I think 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
I really like it.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
Not his best, but I really like it. Yeah.
No. But I mean, a lot of people forget about his early stuff with I really like The Killing. I think The Killing.
Yeah, me too.
It's great.
Criterion has a great Killing. So you'd love the transfer on that. It looks
really
spectacular. Yeah.
Okay. But you forget about Lolita as well. Lolita is a great film, as weird as it is. So yeah, that's that. As Eric goes to pull out his copy of The Killing. Let's have a look. There you go. Oh wow, great cover. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know, I think is it Arrow putting out The Killing or somebody else is in 4K. Shortly. I don't know who it is. Not Criterion, though. Not a company.
Probably Arrow.
But they're bringing out all the early Kubricks on 4K. Killer's Kiss, The Killing. I think Killer's Kiss might be coupled with The Killing together on.
Yeah, I just got Paths of Glory on Criterion not too long ago.
Okay, yeah, so that's why
I'm excited to rewatch that.
No, that's one I do like. Spartacus, the one I'm indifferent to. I think it's okay. It's not bad.
Funny thing is, I've never seen Spartacus.
Never.
It's one of the only Kubrick film I haven't seen really. And actually, this Killing Criterion includes his 55 of one of his earliest films, A Killer's Kiss.
Killer's Kiss,
part of the special features. Yeah,
they usually
it's on here as well.
They use a couple Killing with Killer's Kiss. It's they've done it before with in Britain as well. They did it like that. They did it here in Australia as well. They had The Killing on Blu-ray with Killer's Kiss as a bonus feature. Because it's only 60 something minutes, I think it is. It's a very short film.
Like Spartacus, I mean, I know the story. I know how it ends without having seen it. And I know Kubrick isn't the biggest fan of it. There's studio interference. And if I'm watching a Kubrick film, I don't want studio interference. I want Kubrick being Kubrick.
Watching him film a
and
guy.
He butted heads with Douglas. And
I couldn't stand Kirk Douglas. They didn't get along. And there's also the extra footage added into the film from the 90s, which adds a bit more, like a homoerotic bath scene with I think it's Peter Ustinov and Kirk Douglas, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen Spartacus, so I do want to see it. And I think it's got a 4K here, so if it gets down to a half decent price, because
I will watch it someday, but
I'm starting to
not a priority.
4Ks of Kubrick. I bought The Shining first. I had to get that on 4K, and that is the best that film has ever looked. It is outstanding in 4K. I'm not much of a 4K fan. I do find that some older films can benefit from it. Newer ones on Blu-ray to 4K ain't much different in picture quality. So, but some of the older ones, The Elephant Man in 4K, I got really benefits from it.
Yeah, I've just started getting 4Ks. So
get The Shining, mate. It's unreal. It'll blow you how good it looks. It's never going to look as good as this. So 8K, 180K in the future, I don't care. I'm not going to look as good as it is now. So that's the final time I buy The Shining.
All right. Well, with that in mind, just getting back to the rating, because I could say I'll change my Boogie Nights rating to a 9.
Ah,
and I will rate Last Days of Disco at an 8.5.
8.5. All right. That's still very, very high. All right.
It is.
Well, I'm going to finally give my rating because you were busting my nuts yesterday saying, what do you think? I thought, you know what? You ain't getting away with it, Mulder, that easy because I've busted my other co-hosts for 12 years when they're going, what do you reckon, Stu? I've seen the movie. I'll let you know. I'm going to give it a 7. So I'm going to put it above Boogie Nights. I appreciate it more. And that will only climb with future viewings. I appreciated more the being the age I'm at now, which is starts with 5 at the front. I am not a fan of films that are just like whack, 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 whack editing. I just don't have the temperament for it anymore. Back in 97, 98, when these came out when I was in my mid-20s, yeah, I did. I lived life at a bit more faster pace. It's still fast now, but not as bad back as it was then, or I was on a path of self-destruction. But yeah, I appreciate just having to sit back for 114 minutes, whatever it was, watch this film and watch it flow. This film flowed really nicely. It didn't feel like it was it's been cut there. It's been cut there. It's been cut there. There's edits obviously in the film, but it's not choppy editing like Anderson had with Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
By the time he'd focused on one thing, he'd switch to something else, and he switched to something else, and over to something else. And everything's so frantic and frenetic, and obviously there's a little bit of drug use in this film, as you mentioned, not the extent that there is in Boogie Nights. So we're not going at the speed of what the characters are, where they're living life at 120 miles a minute. So it was good to be able to just reel back and enjoy that pace of the film.
Yeah, I wrote a note down that it seems like Stillman really lets the scene breathe, so to say. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
Because like, especially like with some of the dancing scenes, you know, even when the camera's not moving, it's just stationary on a tripod, just kind of watching them dance back and forth. Yeah. Or during some of the scenes of dialogue. I mean, it's a little bit, you know, we talked about how this feels basically like a stage play, you know, so that I think that, you know, that goes into it a little bit as well. But yeah, like he kind of just films the scene. He doesn't make the scene with his editing, you know.
No,
he doesn't cut like you're talking about.
The editing isn't king in this film. It's the words and the acting is. So,
and the dancing,
yeah, they're fair dancers. These girls, they're all right.
Yeah, like I said, very realistic. Nothing showy, nothing great.
No.
They're okay.
Pretty much, if you go to the club now, it'd be the same that girls dance now. Well, no, they'd be a bit worse now because they're trying to show off all these days. But yeah, it's very, very reserved and it's very natural. It was, yeah.
We didn't talk about the tiger lady.
Oh boy, yeah.
Woof! I did not care for the tiger lady.
Well, you know, it's Drew Barrymore's mum. I didn't know that.
What?
Yeah, it's Jade Barrymore. It's Drew Barrymore's
mum.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't realize at the time either. She was a older woman.
52 when she made this. Boy, I'll tell you what, she kept in goddamn good shape at 52 then.
Yeah, definitely.
Very the only bit of nudity we got in the film, not complaining by any means, because she was good looking. Well,
there is the kind of when you're first introduced to the tiger lady, there's another woman that's just standing topless by the stairs.
Oh, okay.
Huge cans. Yeah, huge cans just standing there. It's when so when they're dancing, you know, Tom bumps into Tiger Lady. She's like, you know, and then he walks away with Alice and they're talking about her and they're walking like up the stairs or something. And basically to the left of him, you see this woman. She has kind of a costume on, very 54-esque, and she's topless, big cans hanging out.
Go back and watch that in a minute.
I can't believe you missed them. They're so big.
Well, yeah. Maybe I just blacked out for a second after I saw them and just don't remember it. Yeah. I mean, I really do want to see this again. God, get me through this week, please. And once this week's over, I'll have more free time, and I think I know what to do with. So, Last
Mhm.
Days of Disco is going to get another spin. And I didn't actually
Yeah.
watch it in the theater. I was just actually downstairs on the 4K TV watching on that. So I want to project it up on the big screen and really crank it up and enjoy it. And
Yeah,
now
crank
that
up
I
that volume, that subwoofer.
Yeah, well, that'll get a workout. That's for damn sure. So I'm looking forward to that. I just want to do it when I've actually got time. I had time, obviously, the other day to watch it, but there was a small window. It was literally the 2 hours I had. The
Mhm.
second time I want to watch it, I want to watch it when I've got plenty of time, not bound by a commitment over here and somebody wants this and somebody wants that out of me. Just shut the world out and say, right, I'm spending the next 2 hours with these characters and with Stillman's vision
Mhm.
to enjoy, and then the music to enjoy it all.
Were there any songs that surprised you, or thought, "Hey, I haven't really heard of this song, and this is surprising. I gotta download this."
That Oogum Boogum one, I really enjoyed. I had it before. It's not
Yeah,
played very often, but I really enjoyed that. I had
yeah,
actually
part of
had to
that
pop it
Philly
on
sound.
the old Shazam app. Got a going over with that. I'm going, what is this song? So threw Shazam open it up, and it's like, oh, cool. Okay, it's this.
Yeah, I think I had heard it before, probably in another film somewhere.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I really love that song.
yeah. I'm tired of
Bretton Wood, right?
yeah.
I think it's the
Um,
artist.
Yeah, I'm tired of hearing Heart of Glass by Blondie. Okay, it's just too easy.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it was in Boogie Nights, I believe. It's in this. I don't know if it's in 54. I can't remember. I'm just over it. We get it. It was a big hit.
Yeah. At least they had the tide is high, a little switch it up a
Yeah.
little bit.
That's more of a reggae sort of track than what
Yeah.
this one with Heart of Glass is just pure disco. And I mean, I'm not shitting on Blondie. I dig Blondie. I like their early
Mhm.
Parallel Lines is a great album. Really like that a
Yeah.
lot.
I love Heart of Glass too, but I agree. It's been overplayed. It's been in a lot of films.
It's played out. I'd really have to see if that was
We Own the Night. It's in that.
yeah. If they would do another disco movie, number one, obviously you and I'd be watching it. But number two, I want to hear a soundtrack that is unlike any other. I don't want to hear Amy Stewart. I don't want to hear Andrea True. And I'm not Andrea True. I love that song. I love that whole album, that More album.
Yeah.
Even White Witch, the one after that, the second one she did, I really like a lot. But I just want to hear a soundtrack of all songs from that era, but ones that are just sort of lost treasures. Think, wow, really cool. I found a new artist, or I found. I don't want to hear
Mhm.
Sylvester's "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real," another track I freaking love, but I just don't want to hear it again. I want to hear some completely the Eddie Trung deep cuts. I want to hear the deep cuts out there as a soundtrack. You could
Yeah.
do it. There's enough bloody recordings out there. I mean,
Or The
you don't.
Hustle.
Oh
You've
my
heard The Hustle enough times, I'm sure.
oh, never ending. But again, a song I can listen to on loop, but I don't want to hear in a film.
Speaking of Van McCoy, I read that Shock Jock. That's Steve Dahl.
Oh yeah.
So when Van McCoy died in July, I think it was 79,
Hmm.
he basically celebrated. He destroyed a Van McCoy record live on the radio in commemorating his death. So this guy really,
Dickhead.
he was a shot jock of the highest order in the late 70s, early 80s there.
Yeah.
He was really going for it.
What an idiot.
He really had it out for disco.
Okay, you don't. I'm not much of a fan of rap, but I'm not going to go and burn rap albums. I'm not a fan of R&B and soul. I'm not a fan of
Mhm.
Western, but I'm not going to go burn this. I just don't. You know what I do? I choose not to listen to it. That's all. Just don't
Yeah.
listen to it. If somebody wants to and they enjoy it, God love you. But I'm not going to. This guy sounds like an absolute dickhead. Yeah.
When Easy E passed, you didn't burn the NWA records that you found.
Nah. Yeah, better things to do with my time than worry about trying to make a statement by saying
Mhm.
Easy. record or NWA. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, God love you. You like your own thing. You like your own thing.
Yeah. Some people, like we talked about earlier, the actual death of disco, you know, some people say that was it. 79 disco demolition night. That's when it all started.
Yeah, I believe so. You know, for all the wrong reasons, but it was on its way out anyway. That one night was not going to herald the death of a. I wouldn't even say disco was a movement, to be honest with you. Josh mentioned in the film there was a movement. I don't believe that. I think it was just a natural progression. You went from like punk was in England. Uh, you know, who was who said it? It might have been John Lydon, or Johnny Rotten, as he's more known. I call him John Lydon. Said that everyone was sick to death of the big stadium bands, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and bands like well, not so much Rush, they weren't that big a band, but Yes, and bands like King Crimson and all the huge stadium bands that are out there, Led Zeppelin. Everyone was just fed up. They wanted something new, and we got you got punk in the UK and you got disco in the US. So yeah, it wasn't not so much a movement, not even punk. It was just a natural progression. Punk may be more of a movement because it was an ideology, because it was very political based and sociologically based, whereas disco was not. It was none of that. Disco wasn't political. Disco wasn't sociological. It was just a new sound that came through that people were enjoying. That's all it was. And you can't blame radio stations from switching to rock to disco because stadium rock was dying. Peter Frampton, and again, Peter Frampton I enjoyed, but people were just sick to death of it. And they want something new. And radio stations are out to make money through advertising, through all sorts of means. And disco is what it is. Well, deal with it, Mr. Steve Dahl, whatever the hell your name is, and go find another station that's still playing rock.
It's basically like the first, top 40 station, They didn't have these poppy stations. Everything that was popular was basically rock.
Yeah.
Before then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either classical or rock.
Look, just everything ebbs and flows in waves. It's something old is something new. Look at vinyl these days.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before in the MMC numerous times, vinyl was dead. DEAD, dead in the mid 90s, late 90s. Nobody wanted it. I've spoken many times to the store near me here in Melbourne where the guy was literally begging people, please take everything. I've got all this excess stock of vinyl. It's $1 each. I'll throw in 15 albums or 20 albums for $15. The more you buy, the cheaper it gets.
Yeah.
Now, you're looking at an album that would have been given away for $1. You're looking at maybe $35-$40 for it. Because everything.
I think I read that. I think last year it was either like I think $1 billion in sales.
Yep.
Maybe it's $2 billion, something like that. It was the first time the sales were that high since
the 80s.
Well, it was one of the early 80s. So I forget which year. It was like, they are back basically as a viable medium.
Yeah, it is. And it's
not so niche anymore.
It's not so. No, it's not. Even I'm starting to recollect them. Picked one up last night, which I was showing the whip epi chunk of the next recording I do with John. One I've been after, so I'm very happy to have it. But what was I saying? I was talking to the guy at one of the record stores on Saturday when I went there, and he goes, "It's not the cost of the vinyl; it's expensive. It's the freight. Because the freight's what's killing the prices." The plants, there's not as many plants open for the amount of demand that there is to have things on vinyl. So obviously, you got a high demand and a low supply. Things are going to be expensive. But more plants are opening up and more things can get pressed. They'll come down to a day. It'll come a day where they'll come down to a reasonable, affordable price where on par with CD, possibly. Who knows? I mean, but I mean, even cassettes are really starting to trickle back. I don't see the point of it. I think cassettes are a dead format. That of the three formats, your CD, your vinyl, your record, or your cassette. The cassette's the worst because you have no control over it. You got to run it, press the fast forward button, hope you get to the
8-track is the worst.
Well, 8-track was bloody, but it was a means to an end at the time in the 70s. But even they go for a few bucks. Try tracking down a Kiss 8-track. You're paying a few bucks for like a live one or a Destroyer on 8-track. You're paying a few bucks. Why you want it? You want it as a display only.
Yeah.
And anybody
work
is, people come along and say, "Oh, 8-track has always sounded better than all the other formats." You're an absolute tool. That's just your jaded memory that's telling us that. But what I'm getting at is things such as vinyl, everything comes along and recycles again. They're saying that there's going to be a time, maybe 10 to 15 years from now, where CDs are going to be very highly collectible. Which are things now they're throwing out at thrift stores for $1 because vinyl's coming back. So, I've got a shit ton of CDs in the garage, an absolute truck ton. So, those things might be worth value in the future. They're not going nowhere. They're staying here with me, but ones I'm paying $1 for could be worth 25, 30 in the future, if not more. It's just the cycle. It's all a cycle. And again, that comes back to disco with this year of 1998, 97, 98. It was recycled, it was dead. No one gave a shit about it. But then we got 3 films in 18 months or less than 18 months about it. So, everything makes a return, albeit briefly. We may get another few handed disco films in 5 years from now. Who knows? It might be a revival. It might be a revival of things. Or it comes back to remakes. Why are we getting so many remakes of films?
Yeah.
Why? Apart from the fact that Hollywood's, bankrupt for ideas. But why remake something? It's because we know it. We know it. Oh, we know disco, so we'll recycle the disco genre. Oh, we know the Revenge of the Nerds. We'll make a Revenge of the Nerds remake. We know this. We made that. Yeah. Everything is
PC
recycled.
Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah.
Woke Revenge of the Nerds.
Please. They tried that back in 2008, I believe, and it got shelved. Thank goodness. So, no, thank you. Leave me with the original nerds. Thanks.
Yeah, with the the 80s have been kind of in the forefront of films over the past 10, 12 years. Not just films, but TV with Stranger Things, and there's been a lot of 80s films, either remakes, sequels, or just biopics about characters in the 80s and goings on. And it's still, I've been trying to figure out, when is it going to end?
When does that end, and when does the
80s nostalgia? When is the 90s really going to pick up?
I don't think it will. I don't think the 90s. If you do, I don't think it'll go any further than say 1992, 93.
Yeah.
After it just became stale. I mean, you and I lived through the 90s at different ages.
Mm-hmm.
I was in my 20s, or 1990. I was just turned 18, 19. Just turned 19 by the time 1990 rolled around. 18. So I had all the access to, get wasted on booze and go to clubs and everything, whereas would have been a kid, so you'd have been. So I lived through it through a different set of eyes. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
and it was really, by the time you got to sort of 94, it was stale. Music was stale. The films weren't very good. There wasn't much coming out. There was of note. You get the odd thing trickle through, but it wasn't like it was with the 80s, where everyone seems to have this glorified idea that every film that came in the 80s was a classic. Well, no, it's not true. It's only over time a lot of people have gone back and found films and said, wow, it's really good. I really like that. But you'd be surprised. Perfect example is John brings up a lot Conan the Barbarian. Everyone seemed to think Conan the Barbarian was a classic when it came out, and it was a bomb.
Yeah.
And it goes back to also things like the Ramones. Where everyone seemed to think the Ramones were massive in the 70s. They were really gone by that time. Same with these guys, the Misfits. Everyone seemed to think, oh, the Misfits were huge. No, they were gone. By the time anybody found them, they were dead and gone. It was only after Metallica got them big in 87 with the Garage Days Revisited EP. People go, oh, who's this band? I was one of them as well. I said, I'd seen their images around, and actually their records in store at the time when they were released. The very few they had out, like Earth AD, things that you could actually get at the time. A lot of their stuff came out a lot later after they disbanded, and Danzig was already in Samhain, or so on, whatever he wants to call it. But people seem to have this idea that think bands like the Ramones were huge when they were. They weren't. I was around for the Ramones, and you know, they were here and they were there, but they weren't on the radio. That's for damn sure. So
the remaining Ramones, Johnny Ramone, he's still alive, right?
no, Johnny's dead. It's Marky.
Marky. Okay, he's a Marky that was at Crypticon a couple of years ago. I could have met him, but I was like,
Yeah.
wasn't worth going just for him.
Still my favorite Ramones drummer. Everyone goes Tommy's their favorite. I get it. Tommy was on the first 3 Ramones albums, but Marky's always been my favorite Ramones drummer. So okay. I would have loved to have met him just to say hello. And they say he's a pretty cool guy as well. So yeah, that would have been cool to see that. But yeah, my point is everyone seems to have had this retroactive idea that every film that came out in the 80s was a monster hit. Some genuinely were. Oh, Porky's was a huge hit. Yeah, it was. I don't know. Pick some 80s film that you like. War Games. Not really. Wasn't a big
for me, like, it always felt to me that everyone likes it because they're nostalgic, but also I think people are drawn to its kitschy nature. It doesn't seem to me like people think that these are classics, more so there was a lot of hits in the 80s, just like any decade. There's a hit every year, some bigger than others.
Yeah.
It seems like, people embrace the kitschiness or the cheesiness, because the 80s embraced it as well. I think more so than any other decade. 70s were so dark and gritty. And then the 80s was so full of color, and obviously different themes were explored, and varying degrees of quality, I would say. But
very much,
because everyone's like, Friday the 13th and Halloween and all these films, all these shitty sequels are in the 80s. People love these movies.
Yep.
I like them a lot too, but nobody thinks they're good. You get the people that, and myself included, I really like Halloween 3. I think it is actually a good movie.
Yeah.
But, they're few and far between, they're even the first Friday. Actually, we could, stay tuned. Friday the 13th, you're going to come on with us over at Watch This Movie.
I'll be there.
Coming up very soon here. But even like that one, it's not a great film. Like Halloween, I would agree that's 78. That's not the 80s, but Halloween I think it's leaps and bounds better than the original Friday the 13th. But it's still pretty good. It's better than most of the sequels, although I enjoy a lot of the sequels more than the original.
Yeah, I'm the same.
But
I with Friday the 13th, and let's cut this short because we'll go on for 3 hours, me and you. Everyone seemed to go Friday the 13th Part 4. Jason's dead, or what the hell it's called. I don't remember what it's called. Something. The final chapter. Sorry, that's it. I don't like it. I watched the game last year. I don't like it. I think it's just stupid. And even the way they killed Jason off at the end just looks dumb. It looks like a rubber mask.
It's like the end of Apocalypse Now, chopping the bull, the water buffalo.
It wasn't much fun for the
Pretty
bull.
cool to me.
Not fun for the bull. That was real. Poor bugger. But yeah, anyway, so summing up, everyone seemed to think that 80s films were huge hits. They weren't. Everyone seems to think that 80s music, everything was a number one. No. Or was popular. No. A lot of shit got found later on.
Yeah.
So I don't think the 90s is going to get that love like the 80s has. And the 70s has gotten it as well in years gone by. But the 90s was a darker time. A much darker time. It was a sort of sea of change where
I could see in the future the aughts being treated kind of like the 80s.
no.
It was kind of a time of great, at least in the US, it was a time of economic expansion and economy was doing well until the late aughts when it crashed. A lot of
but no
it's
one
also
cares
known
about,
for terrible music, I think.
Yeah, it was, but that's the whole thing, Eric. People don't really care and have a retrospective love for economic change or economic prosperity. They don't care. They want about pop culture. They want their films. They want their music, and they want their TV shows that they can talk about. They don't care economics.
I'm saying that's how it's one way that it's similar to the 80s in that it was almost carefree, so to say. Everyone's doing, not everyone, but a lot of people were doing better. Had the means to go out and do certain things, go out and be stupid for a while, especially the younger generation. So I could see in like 10, 20 years, people remembering it fondly because it also had a lot of terrible music in the aughts, a lot of, it's like the rise of auto tune and a lot of garbage, poppy hip hop type stuff. I wouldn't equate it to disco in quality, but I'd equate it to, I guess, disco in like its length of popularity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the I guess the magnitude of its popularity as well, because it was huge. Nobody gives a shit about the Black Eyed Peas now, or the groups like that, and Lil Jon, and nobody gives a fuck. But back then, they were the thing in music.
The only thing
I can kind of see it.
Lil Jon is with Dave Chappelle's. That's about it.
Yeah. So I guess, like you said, the 90s, grunge and everything's a little more depressing, and so I could see, the aughts, it was, sky's the limit, kind of like the 80s was until Black Monday, of course. So there's another similarity in that, the stock market crashed in the late 80s.
And honestly, you can get things such as the night. If you want to go back to the 90s, there's things out there that are already made that will just give you everything you need, such as Hype, the documentary about the grunge sort of upright, or the rise of grunge and how it infested into everyday culture, where you would actually end up having runway models wearing fucking shirts and torn jeans. This is how it got into the culture, how mainstream society embraced the culture of people who generally were flat broke, like punks were flat broke. They had no money. They had bugger all to their name. They had to make do with what they had. The safety pins were literally their way of holding their clothes up because they had so many holes in them and tears and rips. But people were embracing that in the end by putting safety pins and things that didn't need safety pins. So with things like Hype, these were bands coming out of Seattle were generally broke, living 5 people to a 2-bedroom house or something shit, and wearing flannel shirts and ripped jeans and canvas shoes because that's all they had. But then society got a hold of it, or the fashion industry got a hold of it and glamorized it on Milan catwalks. So with the things like Hype, you've got all that you need. You don't need any more. Such as with the decline of Western civilization part 2, the metal years. That'll tell you what metal was fucking like back in the late 80s. Just hedonism, just complete rubbish. And the same with Decline of Western Civilization Part 1 from 1980, the punk years on the East Coast, done by Penelope Spheris. That'll show you what that was like then. So you've got these documents, these visual documents of things that are already made that will give you what you want. You don't need to have things brought up to remind you what it's like. It's already out there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same with like a documentary about the 80s. There's various ones. Just go on YouTube. There's various ones out there about television in the 80s and toys, collectible toys you could get in the 80s, and what music was like in the 80s. It's all out there. So we don't need to have films reminding us. They're nice to have, but we don't need a whole wave of these films coming out and polluting Hollywood to say, oh yeah, the 80s was like this, and so this is what our film reckons the 80s. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
There's pretty much documentaries or anything out there. You want to talk about, get documentaries about VHS tapes, rewind this, watch that. I think it was called Rewind This, the VHS documentary. I've got it on the shelf. But so yeah, I don't want Hollywood to have to say, well, we want to make, this is the new craze, we're going to make this the new fad of films that we want to have, and it's all about the 90s or the aughts. I don't care. I lived them, and there's things out there. There's documentaries out there for them, for people to check out. Because when Hollywood makes them, they're going to distort them. My 2 cents.
Yeah.
Unless
we shall see when this fascination with the 80s ends.
I think we're way off yet. Because people looking for those people want those innocent times back.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people are disillusioned with the internet. I mean, you and I are talking now over the internet. That's how we're getting these things done. And the internet has its positives, no doubt about it. It's created a whole new world, but it's also given us a lot of negatives too. And I've not shied away from the fact I think social media is an absolute cancer on society.
Yeah, you're in for the ways of the 80s.
Yeah.
And you had to call a girl on the phone and hope that she was home and all that. None of this. I'll send her a poke on Facebook. I'll slide into her DMs on Twitter, or on Instagram, or whatever. Fuck.
Yeah.
It just takes the romanticism out of everything, I think.
Yeah. And it's the conversation I had with my brother before about films. When he said, we were talking the other night, he goes, remember when we actually had to get up, go to the theaters, go to the video store, rent them out, flip around the shelves, look around the shelves of tapes that were this big with covers that were like bricks. You had to carry them home in a big bag of 10 for $10, and you had to watch them. You had a week to watch them. Now I can just, I or even my kids who are being robbed of that experience can just turn on the TV, go onto a Netflix, or go onto a Amazon Prime Video or anything else, YouTube even, and just look for anything and pretty much find it. Which brought me back to my conversation about record stores, where you had to get up and you had to go to your record store and say, hey, you got the new Halloween album, or then you got the new Metal Church album, or have you got the new whatever.
And you didn't discover things based on an algorithm. You found them.
No, it was a thing called word of mouth. With
that, and just perusing the catalog of movies, music, what have you, at stores. Even I'm old enough to remember what that was like.
Yeah, that's right. You go into a video store, you go, wow, what a cover. That's it. I'm sold. I'll rent it out.
Yep.
You go into a record store, you go, oh shit, look at this fucking Testament, the Legacy. What's this? This cover looks awesome. I want it. I'll just buy it. Sabotage, Hall of Mountain King. Cover's unreal. I'm just going to take it home and buy it. It's not algorithm based where, hey, you might like this. We recommend this. watch this. So yeah, some piece of AI going, oh, you like Megadeth? You may like, let's say Sanctuary. You might like
Algorithms below Netflix and any service I use, the algorithm sucks.
Yeah, I know. I guarantee now that we're speaking about Megadeth, there'll be an ad for the new Megadeth album coming out. It'll be, yeah, because as soon as you say something, and that's happened, and we will wind up because we just dragging way too long. If you mention a particular product, lo and behold, I went to my work onto the work computer, and I kid you not, Eric, there was an ad for a thing I've been speaking about a few hours earlier. Get the fuck out of here. That's not a coincidence.
You gotta turn off your phone, take the battery out.
Yeah.
Not so easy to do that anymore.
Yeah, tell me about it. But all right, let's wind it up because now it's just gone from talking about a film that we both enjoyed to now just rambling like a couple of
Old man yells at cloud.
I remember the day. Yes.
So yeah, we both rated it. I guess what else is there to say? I don't know.
Watch it. Yeah. Ask Eric about his podcast, which is called
WTM. Watch this movie.
Watch this movie. I started listening to Top Gun Maverick last night.
Yeah.
Yes. Then I switched over to Movie Drone. I just been laughing about.
There you go.
Those two boys. Yeah.
Yeah, the Movie Drone, they put on a great show.
They do. Yeah, I enjoy it. Just as the accents, man. It's like, you're all right, mate. Yeah. Down out with dog. Yeah. Went on holiday. Bought some fish and chips and pickled onions. Go over the pickled onions, mate. Yeah, is that right, mate? Yeah, mate. You know that. Yeah.
They're very, very British.
Oh my god, they're very much so. What do you think about that Boris Johnson, mate? Oh no, he's a fucking wanker, mate. Partygate.
It's like the Nez. You guys have your own British correspondent at MMC with the Nez.
We do with the Nez, but the Movie Drone boys are very polite. Anthony just says what he wants, and I've given him carte blanche. He goes, "Oh, what can I say? Anything, Anthony. Say what you want. It doesn't matter. It's your piece. Just run with it." Hence why he calls Boris Johnson at the end of every episode when he calls him. I said, he goes, "Oh, do you mind?" Go ahead. Just say it, mate. Just call him what you want. Doesn't bother me.
Did you listen to our episode with John Grace on Out for Justice?
I certainly did. I thought thoroughly enjoyed it. With,
a lot of info you never knew you didn't need on Steven Seagal.
Yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge. Is the old John?
He is.
So almost
you all are over at the Midnight Movie Cowboys.
I don't know about me. I mean, I tend to sort of wing it quite a bit. Hunter and John.
That's all we do at WTM.
Oh well, yeah. Well, there's always one in there who's you boys are pretty smart. But watch this movie with Mr. Eric Mulder and Wolfie T. Mr. Positive. You mix me up when you call him Mr. Positivity, Wolfie T. So there's too many letters. Just call him something, will you?
It's just an AKA. He's got a couple of AKAs, Yeah. His name's Brett, also known as Mr. P, Mr. Positivity.
Yeah, Wolfie Mr. P and Wolfie T. That's where I'm getting mixed up. It's like just call him Brett. It's easier. But yeah. Mate, watch this movie. WTM. It is my fave. I like it more than MC.
Well, I like your show more than mine. So
there you go. It's reciprocal.
There you go. Maybe a couple of weeks we'll do 54.
We will. What cut we going to do? Directors and theatrical compare, or you just want to do one? I'm gonna do both.
You can watch both. I think I'm gonna watch the director's cut again.
All right. So you watch the directors. I'm gonna watch both, and I'll take notes of comparisons because listening to the filmmaker in an interview. I think his name is Mark Christopher. He reckons there is a lot of changes, a lot of alternate scenes, and a lot of scenes he didn't want that were shot against his will were inserted into the theatrical. So I am going to do both and have a a side-by-side comparison of the two cuts
Yeah.
and just how much they drastically differ. So anyway, episode 2 done, mate. Let's wrap it up, and we will get into seeing you. We'll get to seeing you guys next time for episode 3 of Studio 54. So I will say later.